Welcome, everyone, and I'm so glad for the wonderful turnout. So I will get started. Okay, so this is the case, and it's truly a real workplace emergency, which we've gone over. And like we said, the most likely diagnosis is vasovagal syncope. That was very obvious and that was very clear. But I want us to ground ourselves in this real scenario because this can really happen to any and everyone. This isn't something distant, it's not dramatic. It's something that we actually deal with every day. And sometimes it just happens to someone that you know. So think about it, like, right, Monday morning, all of us who go to work will go to some will go to the office, some will go to the hospital, but it will just be a routine morning for you. And then this happened. 42-year-old man, he stood up, gave a presentation, and in this case, he was at work, but this can happen anywhere, right? And moments later, he collapsed on the floor unconscious. I want you to just imagine the panic in that room, right? Imagine the confusion. Some people stood and some people were frozen, but then some people started praying, right? Because that's what we do. And some people are thinking, is this guy having a heart attack? Is he having a seizure? Is he having a stroke? You might even be thinking, like, is he dead? And then some people might think, like, should we touch him? Is there something wrong with him? Do we wait? For us in the US, do we call 911? In Lagos, do you call 112? Like, what do you do? But then imagine if you knew this person, right? If this person was your boss or that your BFF coworker that you work with. Or what if you work with your spouse? Like, God forbid, is this that person? What do you do? And then also think about, like, could this even be you? So then someone else here listening and learning could be saving your life. What I want to harp on is that in the first 1 to 2 minutes, that first 60 seconds, right? That's the time frame that can make all the difference. Like I said, this can happen at work, it can happen in the airport, it can happen on the plane, it can happen at church, it can literally happen anywhere. 1 second, this man is fine, and the next second, it's a medical emergency. What you do or what you don't do in that first minute or two, it can really determine if someone is going to walk out of the hospital or if they even never make it there in the first place. And now we know how the story ends and he's fine, but that's the big difference. And you get to play a role in that. You get to be the person, you get to be the first responder, the lifesaver. You know that saying that, like, all heroes don't wear capes. You could be that person. You could be at the soccer field when this happens. You could be at church when this happens, and you could be the hero who saves this guy's life. So this session, and what I want to get into our minds, especially if you're here listening to this, is that we're not trying to make you doctors. We're not trying to make you paramedics. We're not trying to make you EMT. We just want you to be trained in basic life support so that you can determine, is this person having an emergency? What do I need to do next steps? So as we walk through this case, right, I want you to imagine, like, this actually happened in front of you. What do you do? Do you freeze or are you going to be ready? That's this case that I want you to be thinking about. Yes, this happened at a workplace in a conference room, but could it have happened when you went shopping this afternoon? Because it's Saturday afternoon. Could it have happened when you went for your kids' soccer game? Whatever it is, right? I want you to now realize that, like, you are the person who's going to save that life. You are the person who's going to be ready, and it's because you showed up here today. Okay, so your first priority, right? And this is kind of some of the stuff I'll breeze through, but your first priority is you need to figure out, is he having a cardiac arrest? So is he unresponsive and not breathing, or is it something else? Is it like, did he pass out, like this case, vasovagal syncope? Did he seize? We can tell he didn't seize because the case told us there was no tongue biting. He didn't pee on himself. He wasn't post-ictal. So it helps us. But you're thinking, right? Is it cardiac arrest, or is it something else? And when someone collapses, right, this is the thing that happens. And it even happens in the ER, as I'm an ER physician, but, like, adrenaline surges, like you are, and sometimes the next thing after adrenaline is panic, right? But the most powerful tool that you can have is that you can be the clear, calm person that is at that scene. And your simple question that you're asking them is, are they breathing? So I want us to think, like, we have fancy things in the ER, right? We have all the tools in the EMS truck. But the thing is that when you are on ground, when you are at that office, when you are at that field, when you are at church tomorrow and this happens, you have nothing, but you have your clear, concise mind. And you are here today, so you were prepared, but you're also learning. And the question you're asking is, are they breathing? And so every time, like everything that you do next, it depends on that answer to the question, because you're thinking, is this cardiac arrest? So the question is, are they responsive or are they unresponsive? Now, if they are unresponsive, are they breathing or are they not breathing? And this is today we're talking about syncope, and this patient is breathing. But the first thing you ask is, are they unresponsive? And this guy was unresponsive. And the next question is, are they breathing or are they not breathing? If they're not breathing, that's easy. Or, well, that's a little bit more difficult. You start CPR. No questions asked. Don't think twice about it. If they are unresponsive, not breathing, you start CPR. Now, if they are unresponsive and they're breathing, then we'll follow the steps that Dr. Layade talked about. But I want you to know this, right? Your job there is not to diagnose. And you might be the best diagnostician, and you're like, oh, I know what's happening, right? It's not, your job is not to figure out if this man is having a stroke, if he had a seizure, if he passed out. Your job is just to quickly assess and to act decisively. That's what I want you to take away from this, right? And how do you check? And Dr. Lady went over it. It's very simple. You tap them, speak to them, and speak loudly and just say, hey, are you there? Borowa, can you hear me? And if the answer is no, then like we said, and somebody answered really well, look at their chest. Is it rising and falling? And look for breath sounds. Those are the things that you need to do. And like I said, if they are not breathing and they're not responsive and they're not gasping, so you're not even seeing any signs of life at all, then you have to start high quality CPR. And this series is going on from now till the end of the year, and who knows how much longer. So we will go through, good quality CPR. And we've already even started doing that when we came last year, and even in April when we started certifying and teaching people basic life support. So this is important, but this is the delineation, and I want you to pay very close attention to it. In the first 60, 90, 120 seconds, what you do matters. And what you do is the difference between, like I said, someone going to the hospital, making it, and someone not. So, and you might be, like I said, you might be the person in the room who knows, who learns, who is, who's cognizant of what's going on, right? You have to act, but you have to act with confidence, because that's what's going to then empower everyone else in the room to do what they need to do. And remember, in the beginning, you're only checking, are they responsive? Yes or no. Are they breathing? Yes or no. Okay, we talked about this recovery position. I won't go over it in a ton of detail, but that's the first thing you do. As soon as you know that they're breathing, then you turn them into the recovery position again. And we talked about it, and you guys are already experts here. You want to make sure that the tongue is not blocking. You want to make sure that they don't aspirate. Those are all important things. But one thing I also want to say is, if you are the only person there, please don't leave the person alone. Tell someone else, go get help. Ask someone else to, whether it's dial 911, to dial 112, or to even run to get the AED. Let's say it's downstairs and you're in the office, but never leave that person alone. And this is the recovery position that we already talked about. So I won't belabor that. Okay, so this is important, right? How can anyone respond? And who doesn't have a medical degree? I think some of us here, the people who really need to hear this, and this is what we're working really hard, is lay people. The people who don't have a medical degree. I told you, all heroes don't wear capes, right? You are the hero. You show up there, you make a difference. Ordinary people are the ones that are saving lives because they're acting quickly and with confidence. So if you're here and you're like, I don't know what to do, this is it, right? You don't need fancy tools. And this is the part of the presentation that I really want to drive home, because it's the most important. You don't need to wear a white coat like me. You don't need to have a medical degree to save a life, because the truth is that when these emergencies happen, right? I am in the hospital. My nurses are in the hospital. The EMT people are on the truck. You are the person that's on ground. You are the person that is seeing what just happened. You are the person that's going to make a difference, especially because those first 1 to 2 minutes make the biggest difference in a patient's life. I want you to think back to the case because I really want to kind of break down the case in significant detail, right? It wasn't a paramedic who helped him first, right? It was his coworker. It was somebody in the room who saw what who saw that he passed out. It was that person who knew that we needed to turn him to the side to keep his airway clear. It was that person who knew, hey, we need to call emergency. That is a person who really was the savior in that situation. Prevented the guy from aspirating, reduced harm, and then was there when he woke up and said, hey, it's going to be okay. You passed out. That is your role as the first person who shows up when something is wrong. So, what do you do if this happens, right? If you are that friend if you are that friend at the in the office, or if you were the mom and this happened on the soccer field, or if you are at church and this happened sitting next to you, or like me, if you are on an airplane and this happened, what do you do? The first thing that you need to do is to stay calm. Panic is contagious, but composure is also contagious. When they see that you know what you're doing, that you're calm, that you are learning, that you're growing, that you know what to do, you know the next steps, you know that you need to, make sure the person is responsive. You need to check if they're breathing, looking for chest rise, listening to breath sounds, checking for pulses. If they know that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing with calm and composure, that will spread. You also need to make sure that the scene is safe. You want to make sure that you protect yourself and that you protect everyone else around you. Now, this is the most important thing. When the room is chaotic, right? When there are 10 people in the room, you have to take charge and you have to be the leader. Even if you're afraid, right? You can do it afraid. But the most important thing is that you assign roles. So I will look that person in the eye and say, you are the person, pick up your phone and call 911 or call 112. That you are assigning it to one person. You're not just screaming for the whole for the everyone to be like call 911 and everyone does the same thing. You are assigning roles. You are saying you are the person, pick up your phone, call 911. You're looking at the next person in this scenario, right? If this guy was unresponsive and not breathing, you're telling someone go get the AED. And you're assigning someone to do. So you are assigning specific roles as the leader, but you have to take charge, and you have to make sure that they know that you are the person who is not panicking, who is courageous, who knows what they're doing, and that you lead by example. Guess what? All of these actions don't need a medical license, right? They only need you to be present. They need you to be aware. They need you to know what you're doing, and then they need you to step forward and take action. That's the goal of what we're doing today as the foundation, as the beginning. What happens before anyone gets there, right? It's so that we can empower you with the tools, and by the tools I mean awareness and education, but also let you know that like you are the person who can do this, and instill that confidence in you that you're learning. Let me just tell you one secret. This is not rocket science, right? This is just simple steps, ABC, what you need to do as soon as you get on the scene, as you're seeing what happens. So you don't have to be the hero, although I think you're the hero because you're there, but you have to act. You have to be the person who takes action and does what needs to be done. So I want to talk a little bit about we know that he passed out, and we know that it's probably vasovagal syncope. He stood up too fast and there was a change in his blood pressure and his heart rate, right? But as the person on site and as the person who knows what happened, right? One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is that when that person wakes up, 1 to 2 minutes when they wake up, they're like, oh, it's fine. It was not a big deal, right? They're talking to you and you're like, oh, well, yeah. The person's like, yeah, I missed breakfast. I got a little dizzy. And that's that. Let me get back to work. What you're doing, and that's why you're here, right? You're going to help that person understand that any unexplained loss of consciousness is a red flag, right? Your body is not like a car that just starts and stops whenever it wants, right? The body does not shut down temporarily. That's not something that it does.